Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to our Tour de France discussion. Today we discuss stage number 12. Meanwhile, I play Factorio with the Angels and Bob's Mods active. I did one episode for this as a precursor to this discussion post CPU going down. By the way, quick update on that CPU status and getting back to normalcy on the channel. The warranty from AMD is being honored, but it took them over a week to get through that process. The CPU itself is being mailed clear across the country instead of the ground mail that would have taken weeks to complete. I went ahead and paid for the super fast, let's get it there right away option. And so they should have that in the next day or so. And then, of course, they've got to verify that it's, in fact, in the condition as stated, and then return it. Long story short, return a new one, that is. Long story short, I'm about maybe 1 week from having the new CPU in place and being back up and running as normal. Meantime, again, we're on stage 12. So, at least in game, we're still very, very early on, and I'm still trying to get used to how the buttons are very different. Very different here on the Mac than they are on the PC. You get used to a lot of keyboard shortcuts and workarounds that just play out a little different here. Anyway, with the Bob's Mods, Angels Mods active, there's a lot more steps, and early game takes way longer than it would normally, and medium game, and so on and so forth, as there's just a lot more going on along the way, and it takes a lot to get even just simple tasks under the normal Factorio completed. The stage today, it was the longest one of the tour this year. For me, that meant waking up at 3:30 in the morning, even after missing the early kilometers. So I'm already tired. Fortunately, I've had my coffee at least. It was a bit of a bore early on in this one. Certainly not like yesterday was. But this stage is really going to pick up at 50K to go. Stage itself, 218 kilometers in length. We had 2 Category 4 climbs. We had a Cat 3 and a Category 2 climb along the way for this one. We're just getting started on research here, so I really just don't have much going on. So we have just our earliest hint of power going on. And for that, we just have a single lab active. So until I get a little bit of research done, this is kind of the main thing going on short term. Big news for the day. Many of you already know what I'm going to mention on that one, but we're going to come to that in a little bit. I'm going to wait to the back end of this conversation to get into that topic, as it definitely impacts what happened today. Yikes, 75. So, with the stage itself, eventually there are 6 riders in the break. At the largest point, they had roughly a 2-minute gap. It was held there for a long time. The intermediate sprint, not too far in the stage. Of course, the top 6 were the breakaway. 7th, again, this ends up identical to yesterday's intermediate sprint. Kind of quick step, putting in the hard work, doing a proper sprint. Their lead out man pulling up at the last moment and easing Bennett across the line. So Bennett takes 7th. Their lead out man takes 8th. Sagan right behind them in 9th. That's a 2-point advantage for Bennett in that points classification. Again, we're going to come back to the news of the day and what that also means after that intermediate sprint discussion. We'll come back to that points tally. The 2 Category 4s are going to come up at the midpoint of the stage. breakaway, easily claiming those. Cosnefroid, nowhere to be seen on the day. In fact, the only time we saw him was the first time they even did a ounce of proper climbing. He went straight out the back. My prediction for Cosnefroid, who sits on 36 points right now, he will not surpass 40 points. He might not surpass the 36 he has now, but I could see maybe beginning of stage, Cat 4, maybe he can grab 1 point, 2 points somewhere. I haven't looked at the profile for every stage here on out to know, but something tells me that he is very much done in that competition. He's got a jersey on his back, and as soon as that jersey leaves, we won't see him on the tour again. He's a complete no-show. He went way, way too deep in that first week to get the points that he has, even though he was completely unchallenged. But he still went way too deep to get over the climbs that he did when he is not a good climber. Cosnefroid is toast. Now, the reason why the race picked up at around 50K was that's where the undulation became proper. That's where we got into an actual up-down go around that really put a hurting into the field. So, pace picks up quite quickly. The remnants of that break, one by one, they were caught, which is why they go unnamed. But starting just a couple kilometers after the acceleration is where we hit the base of the Category 3 climb on the day, which is the, sorry for the pronunciation here, but the Croix de Puy. 4.8 kilometers, 6% average gradient. And the traditional sprinters, gone almost immediately. I mean, they were dropped very, very quickly on this one. Isolated. The strongest climbers, Sagan, Trentin, the only ones around. Also, as we... hello, everybody running out of coal at the same time. No, let's not... Okay. Meant to drop half, but okay, there we go. Let's pick up half. Sagan clearly had this stage earmarked, as it was Bora who had done a lot of the chasing to keep the breakaway close, which is why they were caught so easily. It wasn't necessarily a light tempo in the peloton like it had been yesterday, where they were literally crawling along. Well, not literally. They were still riding faster and harder than I do. But we see an attack off the front. Oh! Attack! Hello, biters. Hello, where'd you come from? Really? We're getting attacked already? Let's see. Where is the pollution? Okay, we are just touching that first one already. The pollution, way more widespread than I thought. We literally have, like, barely any power in a single lab, and we're already getting attacked. This is not okay. This is not okay at all. Holy cow. I'm in trouble. Let's go ahead and put 5 together here. We lost our 4. That's all we lost at this point. We do have some coal. And are you kidding me? I don't even have the first little bit of defenses yet. Tish Benut, Soren Kragh Andersen, and Marc Soler were the front 3, but many other riders after those 3 attacked. themselves started to attack. Now, here's the scenario and kind of why. The peloton was being controlled by Bora Hansgrohe. Bora, obvious what they're up to. They're trying to get their man, Peter Sagan, in a position to place well on the stage. Oh, okay. We've already used up those resources right there, apparently. So, did we lose a burner inserter here? Yes, I think we did. Almost missed that one in the mess of bodies. Where are those inserters hiding? There are so many additional menus with these mods active. I missed it. Nope, I didn't miss it. There it is. Okay, so we need to start thinking about defense. Why are you hiding, defense? I don't even think I have anything yet. Oh, there you are, combat. Nothing. Nothing but personal ammo, which I'm down to a single clip, so. And just the handgun. I'm in trouble. Trouble. So, after those front three attack, others recognize the situation, and so they attack. The numbers start to grow, and because of where the motorbikes were, kind of had a motorbike at the front, and then in the middle in the chase, they got one motorbike in there, and then you couldn't really see what else might be going on elsewhere. Vast unknown, a lot of riders bridging this gap, but Bora, of course, is riding for Sagan, and they're leading the pace, and they can only ride so fast to get Sagan over the top. So, we end up with this weird scenario where the peloton's going pretty quick, but not as quick as they could be going. It's not Jumbo-Visma or Ineos on the front, it's Bora on the front, and that kept that pace just low enough that 25, 30 riders in all end up attacking. Spread out all over the place. And so we never did get a terribly good look at who all of those riders were. Over the top of that category 3, it was Marc Soler who had gone over first, along with two Sunweb riders. But a third Sunweb rider joined them as they went over the top of that category 3. Short descent before they immediately then go up a category 2, and the big climb of the day. And Mark Hershey of Sunweb joins that group along with a couple more. So they end up with 6 riders at the front. 3 of them Sunweb riders. And they had a 35-second gap over a chase group, which was full of riders. Valverde had somehow been dropped. He lost 2 minutes going up that climb. We have no idea what happened with Valverde. It was never seen. Like I said, there was a lot of chaos because we had all these mini attacks, so many riders. And that sets them up for the final climb, which is a category 2, 3.8 kilometers, 7.7% average gradient. The break and the chase quickly start to disintegrate as the strongest riders of the bunch take over. The 2 Sunweb riders were leading out Hershey, and the peloton was starting to close the gap. Now, no longer led by Bora Hansgrohe and led by Jumbo-Visma among some others. Hershey ends up going clear of that front break group. Alaphilippe starts attacking from the peloton, makes his way into the chase group, attacking the chase group, disintegrating it into bits and pieces. And he had some teammate teammates who had been up the road and part of these groups. So he was using them to help bridge those gaps. Sagan actually starts to slip out the back of the peloton near the top. Hershey goes over the top first, picks up 5 points. Doesn't even get a mention that he is now just a handful of points away from the polka dot jersey as he has done that. Sagan, just over the top, actually bridges back on, so he just paced himself and didn't end up losing any ground, which was important. I'm getting attacked right now. And Hershey, of course, as he's been... Oh, man. You gotta be kidding me. I got nothing left here. What? Oh, this is too early. They are attacking too hard, too early. I am in a world of hurt now. There goes my entire iron supply. And I haven't even gotten to the first military pack yet. Not even any... I mean, we're generating like 0 power. Should have almost no pollution right now, and yet we're getting pummeled. I have not had a campaign like this one in a long time. We need to change this to anything military I can get my hands on. With 10, that'll happen faster. But all this is going to get me is the machine gun at least. But, I mean, how am I supposed to... I can't even use towers and walk up there and do something. And now I have... I have no means of defense. I have no iron. They destroyed everything that I had produced and made, and well, at least they didn't take... Oh no, they did. They destroyed that one. Okay, I have 220 at least. I'm going to have to try to attack. I don't know how, without towers and with nothing but a handgun, how I'm supposed to take out... I mean, I don't even have a satellite down yet. We're literally just at the very beginning, and I'm already getting attacked. Okay, well, suicide watch is on, folks. I can't obviously build up and stop these guys. Sorry, my mouse is sliding downhill here. There we go. The game was supposed to be casual. This is now distracting. Anyway, Hershey, we know that he's aggressive on descents, and so he was. Ooh, hello, what are you? A puffer nest? What's going to happen when I attack this? I just got 2 puffer eggs. Okay. Try to scroll. Oh, it's just a single biter nest? And there's only... Yeah, that's more than 4 biters. Yeah, handgun. Not so good for this job. Not so good for this job. Oh, and they're attacking the base right now already. Why are they Okay. I'm out of ammo. I'm out of ammo. Oh gosh, they're generating way too fast here. We finished the military research, but handgun just produced. There you go. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh gosh, I'm already out of ammo again. Go down, go down, go down, go down. Okay, we made it. All right. But they're, meanwhile, destroying whatever's left of the base out here somewhere. So, kind of back to square one. Anyway, so Hershey, aggressive on the descent. Solaire and Shockman were 30 seconds behind. Peloton was just over a minute and a half behind. There they are. Oh man, this is just horrible. Good thing this is not going to be a long-term campaign, right? Okay, that'll get that up and running again at least. We still have copper. We have no iron though, and that's kind of what I need right now to rebuild. And we just use most of our iron on weapons. That's an assembly machine. I was preparing for what's next. All right, you know what? Let's just let that sit so we can focus on finishing up what's with the stage. I've survived, and we'll have to make that. Minute 38 to the peloton. Alaphilippe was 50 seconds behind with a large group, the largest chase group. After the descent, the gaps were at 35, 53, and 2. There was 15 kilometers to go, and the gap was now holding pretty steady. All alone, Hershey had good pace. There was 2 uncategorized climbs left, plus a little uphill at the finish. Solaire and Shockman were caught by the Alaphilippe group, making it a single chase group with Hershey at the front and the peloton behind. At this point, they were still 45 seconds behind, so they barely made any time up. The peloton was at 2 minutes, so they were still at the same gap. They weren't closing it down, and here's why. Bora did not go to the front. They were pretty much out of riders. Sagan was almost alone in the peloton, which is ridiculous because they should have been closing this group down and trying to get Sagan points. And he wasn't totally alone, but it was hard to tell because we were only getting the front 2 groups for the most part. First hill, Alaphilippe and others attacking constantly were thinning that group out. The gap was at 42 seconds, so they only gained 3 seconds. And the peloton just starting to inch back at a minute 50. Alaphilippe attacks repeatedly again and again and again. And as they went on to the last hill, Alaphilippe was dropped. And then with the camera right on him, suddenly he's like trying to mess around with his bike as if his bike had something wrong. You could clearly see there was nothing wrong with his bike. And at the finish, a little bit later, you could clearly see nothing was wrong with Alaphilippe's bike. He just didn't have the legs anymore because he attacked repeatedly again and again and was the one doing most of the work. It was his legs, folks. It was his legs. Alaphilippe was fooling you. But he gets dropped by the group. The strongest riders who weren't wasting all their effort attacking half-heartedly again and again, they ride off to go for second. But it's Hershey. Mark Hershey did it. He pulled off the win that he came so close twice already. What a great ride by Mark Hershey. Pierre Rolland was the one who was able to comfortably ride away for second place. Good showing for B&B. Not bad. Not bad at all. Sagan comfortably won the sprint from the peloton. But it was only for 13th place. It was only for 3 points. If Bora was there chasing, Marc Solaire, who finished 12th, would have been caught. Alaphilippe, who finished 11th, easily would have been caught. They were only seconds ahead of the peloton. They may have caught one or two other guys, depending on how hard they chased. Sagan, once he was on, and once they descended, Sagan was in a position where if Bora were at the front, nobody in the peloton cared. At that point, they were not going to catch Mark Hirschi. So for them, there was no point riding for second, and there was no threat to the GC. The only vested interest in that peloton to close the gap was Bora Hansgrohe and Peter Sagan, who desperately needed points. And here's why he desperately needed points. Yesterday, we started to discuss what happened with at the end of the stage and Sagan nudging Van Aert out of the way. Well, it turns out there's two things to it. One, there was a reason why he nudged him. Okay, as we watched the stage and as we saw the replays, Sagan was fourth wheel behind Van Aert. Van Aert at the front. Another rider in between who I still don't know who that was, following directly behind Van Aert on the exact same line. Bennett, and then Sagan. Bennett went first. Well, Van Aert was accelerating first, but Bennett attacked to the left. And he attacked into a very small gap that was no longer there. So Sagan had nowhere to go except right. It was a tight space to the right, but there was space. They were not all the way to the barrier. So Sagan went right, overtook that rider who was second wheel. Van Aert was attacking at the front, keeping same line. Bennett was attacking on the left, closing Van Aert down. And Sagan, who easily overtook. Sagan was quick, super quick on that sprint yesterday. Easily overtook that second rider and was halfway up Van Aert and overtaking him. The space was thin, but it was space, and he was riding in that space no problem. All of a sudden, Sagan ends up leaning and nudging into Van Aert slightly. Van Aert moved about 3 inches to the left, and Sagan continued on and rode past him to take second place on the stage. Now, it didn't look so good, and that's why we talked about it. And we talked about what happened in 2017, where Cavendish went into a space that did not exist, where Sagan was up against the barrier, and Cavendish tried to put himself into the barrier to go past him, and then crashed himself out, fell into Sagan's bike. Sagan saves himself and continues on, and then gets disqualified from the race. Sagan was in Van Aert's position on how the roles reversed this time, and it was Sagan who was up against the barriers. But unlike in 2017, where there was literally no space to go, there was space here. It wasn't much, but there was space. But then all of a sudden, Sagan kind of squeezes a little more and goes on. So we discussed whether it should be a penalty. I did not think it should be a penalty at all, but I did mention that I wouldn't be completely surprised if he was penalized. Well, two things happened. One, Sagan, he'd already squeezed past one rider, no issue. There was enough space there. It was thin, but he is a heck of a bike handler, and he had no problem getting past the first rider. Van Aert was on the exact same line and did not move. And Sagan was easily passing him and was halfway past him and was continuing, and then all of a sudden was into Van Aert. There was a reason for it. Somebody, spectator, had a selfie stick sticking out over the barrier. Because it was a thin space, that selfie stick sticking out over the barrier, Sagan saw it at the last moment and leaned out of the way, which then bumped Van Aert slightly. Van Aert only moved a couple inches. Sagan moved that couple inches necessary to not hit the selfie stick, and then just continued on, both of them unaffected. They penalized Sagan, costing him the second place, which was 30 points, relegating him to the back of the pack. Also, In doing so, not only does Sagan lose 30 points, but Bennett moves from third to second in the classification, going from 20 points to 30 points. So actually, Sagan loses 40 points in that instant. That being the second thing, the relegation. He did no harm. He did no wrong. It was a safety thing. I'm furious by this penalty, and I think it is 100% wrong, especially in lieu of the evidence. And the replay does show. Of course, you don't see it live. It's a small thing, and it's an overhead thing. But when you look closer and you examine it, the evidence confirms for a fact that the selfie stick was not the imagination of Peter Sagan. It was there. In 2017, Sagan completely screwed by Cavendish's own mistake. That was 100% the fault of Mark Cavendish, 0% to blame for Peter Sagan. Here, Van Aert, 0% of the blame. He didn't do anything wrong. Sagan saved his life. That would have been a massive crash. And even if the selfie stick isn't there, it's a tiny nudge. He didn't do any harm. He did not change the outcome. Van Aert was being overtaken. He is not the fastest sprinter. Sagan's not the fastest sprinter either. But he was better prepared. Van Aert was out front alone, going way too early and just holding a steady pace towards the end and slightly fading. Ewan was quicker. Bennett was quicker. Sagan was quicker. Van Aert took fourth on merit, not because of Sagan. And Sagan took second on merit, not because of that nudge. He may have won if that selfie stick wasn't there. And he would have done it cleanly without touching. We saw Ewan the other day change his line to win a stage, flying through the pack. Sagan wasn't changing lines or anything like that. He wasn't doing anything dangerous. It was a heck of a bike handling maneuver to keep that line that was very thin and to not create a crash in that scenario, avoiding that selfie stick. 40 points. 40 points lost on that. Good news today is that Sagan at least gained a tiny amount, minute amount, but he went from losing 2 points at the intermediate sprint, claiming 3 points at the finish, which means Sagan only gained a single point. Sagan at the intermediate sprint was now 70 points behind. Which means he's 67 behind now. Now, if we subtract 67, that puts him at 27 behind. Now, he finished the stage yesterday 15 points down. So they didn't just take 30 points away from him. I think they took away his intermediate sprint points as well. So there was more than a 40-point penalty, because to go from 15 to 67 when he gained 2 points on the day means there was more points. There's more points subtracted than what we've seen, than what should have been. I need to look into that more to find out more about it. But for me, I do have personal bias. I do like Sagan. I have no issues with Sam Bennett. It's not one of the guys that I like. I'm not a fan of Bennett, and I am a fan of Sagan. So I do admit that, and I do have that bias. I'm a fan of Ewan. I'm a fan of plenty of riders. There's only a handful of riders all time that I dislike. Obviously, Dumoulin is one of those. So I do have issues with people, and I'm a person, and I don't come into this without any bias. I'm not a member of the media, per se. So it's hard for me to be objective in this moment as a fan. But I don't see that as a penalty. I see Sagan being completely screwed in 2017 by the commissaires, and I see them screwing him again. So now, I want nothing more than Sagan to stick it to the commissaires and win this jersey. I am now rooting for him 100% because he's been screwed. And if he loses this thing by a smaller margin than what was taken from him on yesterday's stage for something that was no fault of his own, and even when it looked like it was fault of his own, it was as minor can be. He didn't punch somebody like Buoni. He didn't take somebody out. He didn't create some major wreck that ruined somebody's races. Van Aert was fourth place by merit, with or without that nudge. He moved 2 inches. He didn't lose a single pedal. He lost no pace. And Sagan still managed to finish second, despite Sagan lost out more on that than Van Aert did. He didn't gain anything from that nudge. That space, it was the same space. That space already existed. Van Aert moving 2 inches after, that space was already there, and Sagan was already slipping through that exact same space. I'm not happy. I don't think it was a good decision by the commissaires, and I think Sagan is due some positive karma after this one, and I'm rooting for him. Let's hope that he can do it. Let me know if you agree in the comments below. I know my personal bias here is affecting my belief on this, and maybe, just maybe, it's not the right thing. Maybe you don't agree. Let me know in the comments below. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.